My mother called me at 6 in the morning on the day of my engagement party. I remember because I was already awake, sitting at the kitchen counter of my Brooklyn apartment with a mug of black coffee going cold in my hands, watching the sun come up over the brownstones across the street. I had been awake since 4, too wired to sleep, going over the seating chart in my head one more time. 32 guests. Italian place in the West Village. My fiancé Daniel had spent 2 months calling in favors to get the private room at the back, the one with the exposed brick and the long oak table that seated exactly the right number. "Honey," my mother said. And I already knew. 31 years of being her daughter, and I could tell from a single word. I am Hannah, by the way. I was 29 that morning. I work as a senior data analyst for a healthcare company in Manhattan, the kind of job where you spend 10 hours a day staring at spreadsheets and pretending your back doesn't hurt. I am the older daughter. My younger sister Brooke is 26, and, in my mother's words, still figuring herself out. She's been figuring herself out since she was 19. "Honey, I have to tell you something, and I don't want you to be upset." I set the coffee down. I knew what was coming, and yet I still hoped, the way you hope a lottery ticket might hit, even though you already know it won't. "What is it, Mom?" "Your sister's audition is today. Her audition is on a Tuesday. Her audition is on a Tuesday. My party is on Saturday." It got moved. The casting director, his schedule changed, and they had to fit everyone in this weekend. "Brooke is going in at 4. We need to drive her up to Westchester." I closed my eyes. Brooke had been auditioning for things since she dropped out of NYU her sophomore year to pursue acting full-time. In 7 years, she had booked exactly 2 commercials and 1 non-speaking role on a soap opera that got canceled 4 episodes after she filmed her scene. My parents had paid her rent in Astoria the entire time. They had also paid for her headshots, her acting classes, her vocal coach, and a brief experiment with a manager who turned out to be running a small scam out of a midtown coffee shop. "My engagement party starts at 6. I know, sweetheart. I know. But we'll try to make it back. The audition's at 4. It should only take an hour. And then we'll get on the road. Westchester to the West Village. That's what, an hour? Hour and a half? We'll be there for dessert at least. Mom, the party is 2 hours long. There's no dessert. The whole thing wraps at 8. "Well, we'll do what we can." Her voice tightened, the way it always did when I tried to hold her to anything. "Hannah, your father and I cannot be in 2 places at once. Brooke needs us today. This could be a real opportunity for her." I let her go without saying anything else. I sat in the kitchen and listened to the refrigerator hum. Outside, a garbage truck made its slow, grinding way down the block. I thought about Daniel, asleep in our bedroom, the man who had picked out a ring he could barely afford and gotten down on one knee in Prospect Park last October and asked me to marry him. His parents were flying in from Seattle. His sister had taken the red-eye from Denver. Everyone he loved was going to be in that restaurant tonight, and my own parents were going to be in a parked car in Westchester, waiting for my sister to come out of an audition that would amount to nothing. I should tell you about the cake. 2 days before, I had gone to a bakery in Carroll Gardens and picked up the small cake we'd ordered for the dessert table. White buttercream. My name and Daniel's piped on top in gold script. The woman at the counter had handed me the box and said, "Congratulations, sweetheart. Big night coming." I had cried in the cab on the way home, and the driver had pretended not to notice, which I appreciated. That night I stood next to Daniel at the head of the oak table while his mother gave a toast that made me want to crawl under the chairs. She said she had never seen her son so happy. She said that from the first time he brought me home, she had known. She talked about her own marriage of 37 years and what it had taught her about love. Daniel's father raised his glass with tears in his eyes, and my future sister-in-law, Tessa, squeezed my arm. 2 empty chairs sat at the end of the table where I had placed my parents. I had set them right next to Daniel's mom because I wanted her to like them. I wanted her to think we came from people who showed up. At 7:45, my mother sent a text. "So sorry, honey. Audition ran long. We're stuck in traffic on the sawmill. We'll call tomorrow. Tell Daniel hi." That was the moment. I want to be honest with you about this. There had been 1,000 moments before. A slow accumulation of birthdays and graduations, and one Thanksgiving where they left early to go to Brooke's improv showcase. But this was the moment something inside me finally went quiet. Not loud, not angry. Quiet. The way a fan goes quiet when you finally unplug it and realize how much noise it had been making. I put my phone in my purse, and I went and stood next to my fiancé, and I smiled until my face hurt. And I had a wonderful time. I really did. I want you to know that. The night was beautiful in spite of them. The next morning, I made another pot of coffee, and I opened my laptop and I started looking at real estate. Here is something you should understand. I had been saving for 9 years. Not for a house exactly, just saving, because my parents had taught me by example what happens when you don't. I had watched them refinance their place in New Jersey twice to pay for Brooke's lifestyle. I had watched my mother put off her own dental work for 3 years because Brooke needed a new car. I knew what I did not want my life to look like, and so for my first real paycheck, I had put away whatever I could. I lived in a 1-bedroom in Brooklyn that I could have afforded twice over. I drove a 2014 Honda Civic. I ate at home. I had close to $240,000 in a high-yield savings account, and I had never told a soul, including Daniel. He knew I was careful with money. He did not know the number. That morning, I started looking at houses in the Hudson Valley. Just looking. 3 hours later, I had a list of 17 properties, and I had called my real estate agent, a woman named Priya, who had helped a coworker buy a place in Beacon 2 years ago. I told her what I wanted, something on a few acres. A real house, not a cabin. Old, with character, but the bones had to be solid. Under $300,000 if at all possible. Quiet road. View of something, anything. Mountains, water, a field. I did not care which. For you and your fiancé? Priya asked. I thought about it for a second. For me, I said. It's a gift. She found it 3 weeks later. A 1920s farmhouse outside Rhinebeck, sitting on 4.5 acres at the end of a gravel road. White clapboard, green shutters, a wraparound porch with the original beadboard ceiling. The owner had been an elderly widower who had passed in the spring, and his children, both living in California, wanted a fast sale. The asking price was $295,000. Priya thought we could get it for $275,000. I drove up on a Saturday in October to see it. The leaves were going. The driveway was lined with sugar maples that were on fire in the afternoon sun. I stood on the porch, and I cried. I am not generally a crier, but I cried that day. I called Daniel from the side yard, and I told him I was buying a house, and I told him why, and I told him he could think whatever he wanted about it. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Babe, you should have done this years ago." I closed at the end of November. I paid cash. I had enough left over for a security system, a new roof on the detached garage, and a contractor named Eddie who agreed to do the kitchen over the winter. I did not tell my family. Not because I was hiding it, exactly. Because they had not earned the right to know yet. That is a distinction I have come to understand only recently. Some information is not free. Some information you have to be the kind of person who deserves to receive it. The first weekend after I had the keys, I drove up with Daniel and we sat on the porch and drank a bottle of cheap red wine and watched the sun go down over the ridge behind the house. He held my hand and said, "This is the best thing I've ever seen you do." I do not have many memories that I want to keep forever. That one is on the short list. I spent the winter up there every weekend. I learned to use a wood stove. I painted the front parlor a color called pigeon gray that took me 6 tries to pick. I bought a used farm table off a man in Hudson and dragged it home in a borrowed pickup. Eddie finished the kitchen in March. By April I had hung curtains in every room, and I had planted bulbs along the front walk, and I had a name for the place in my head. Though I did not say it out loud. I called it the house that I built. Even though I did not build it, you understand. I built who I had to be to buy it. In May I made the mistake. I want to call it a mistake, but I'm not entirely sure it was. I think part of me wanted them to know. Part of me wanted them to feel exactly what I felt that night at the engagement party. And I think it was the part of me I am least proud of. But I am not going to pretend it did not exist. I posted a photo on Facebook. Just one. The front porch with the morning sun on it, a coffee cup on the railing, a hydrangea in bloom by the steps. The caption said, "The best gift I ever gave myself." Within an hour, my mother called. "Hannah, what is this house?" "It's my house, Mom." "Your house?" "What do you mean, your house? You bought a house and you didn't tell us?" I closed in November. There was a silence on the other end, so loud I could hear her breathing. November of last year. You have owned a house for 6 months, and you did not tell your own mother. That's correct. Your father will need to sit down for this. Hannah, what were you thinking? I was thinking I wanted a house. Where is it? Upstate. Where upstate? Mom, why does it matter where? It matters because, Hannah, your sister has been talking for months about wanting to get out of the city. She is at a place in her life where the noise is killing her creativity. She needs space. She needs somewhere quiet to work on her one-woman show. And you have a country house. You have a country house, and you didn't tell us. Her voice was rising in a way I knew well. Hannah, do you understand what this means for your sister? What it means for my sister? Yes, Hannah, your sister, has been struggling. I want to tell you that I laughed. I did not laugh out loud, but something inside me made a sound that was very close to a laugh. Mom, I said, I bought a house with my own money. For myself, my sister has nothing to do with it. Hannah Marie, you have lived in that apartment for 8 years. You have a perfectly nice apartment. Brooke needs the house more than you do. You can drive up on weekends. You don't need to live there full time. Brooke could be there during the week working on her material, and you could come up on Saturdays. It's perfect, Hannah. It's actually perfect. This is a sign. This is the universe telling us something. I sat down on a kitchen stool. I remember the exact angle of the afternoon light on the floor. Mom, are you asking me to give my sister my house? I am asking you to consider it. To consider what it would mean. To consider what family means. No, Hannah. No, Mom. The answer is no. The answer was no before you asked it, and it will still be no tomorrow. Hannah, you are being incredibly selfish. Your sister is an artist. She needs this. You are a finance person. You have a steady job. You have Daniel. You have a life. Your sister has none of those things. She has talent, and she has nothing else. She has 31 years of you and Dad treating her like the only person in the room. That's something. My mother hung up on me. My father called 20 minutes later. He took a different approach. He never raises his voice. He never had to. He used the tone he used when I was 11 and had gotten in trouble for something at school. The tone that says, I am very disappointed, and we both know what you have to do to fix this. Hannah Bear, your mother is upset. I want you to know I am not asking you to give the house away. I would never ask that. Good. But I think there could be a middle ground here. Brooke is family. Family takes care of each other. What if we set up something where Brooke uses the place during the week? You have it on weekends. And at some point in the future, you know, when you and Daniel buy your own place together, the deed could transfer to her. You'd get something out of it. We could work out the details. I stood up. I watched to the window of my Brooklyn apartment, and I watched a woman across the street try to parallel park a Subaru into a space that was 4 inches longer than her car. Dad, did you put 20% down on a house I bought with cash? Hannah, did you contribute a single dollar? This is not about contribution. It's exactly about contribution. I contributed everything. Brooke contributed nothing. Therefore, the house is mine. Do you see the logic, Dad? You are an accountant. You of all people should see the logic. He sighed. Your mother is going to be very hurt by this. She's already hurt. She was already hurt before I bought the house. She'll find a way to be hurt no matter what I do. Hannah, I want to remind you of something. Your mother and I have a will. We have plans for how to take care of you girls in the future. We have always intended to be fair, equitable. But we also have always intended to take care of whichever of our daughters needs more help. That has been our philosophy, and I think you've always understood that. I almost smiled. I almost did, because here it was, the thing the comments online always warn you about, the thing I had read about in other people's stories and had never quite believed would happen in my own. The will. The threat of the will. As if there was some great fortune sitting there waiting, when in fact, I knew exactly what my parents had. I knew because my father had told me at Christmas 2 years ago, after 3 glasses of wine, that he was worried about retirement and was thinking about taking out another loan against the house. I knew there was nothing. The will was a piece of paper with debts on it. Dad, I said, take me out. If that's what this is, take me out. Leave whatever you have to Brooke. I have never expected anything from either of you, and I am not starting now. Take me out tonight if you want. Have the lawyer send me a copy when it's done. I'll frame it. Hannah, I have to go. I love you. The answer is still no. I hung up. The next week was the flying monkeys, as the internet calls them. My Aunt Lorraine, my mother's sister, called from Tampa to tell me I was tearing the family apart. My cousin Jess, who I had not spoken to in 2 years, sent me a long text about how blood is thicker than water, and how I would regret this on my parents' deathbed. My Uncle Phil, my father's brother, who I had always actually liked, sent me an email that opened with the words, "Hannah, sweetheart, I know you've worked hard, but," and I deleted it without reading the rest. The pattern was always the same. Brooke deserves it more. Brooke needs it more. Brooke is fragile. You're strong. You can take this. You are the one who can absorb the loss. I want to tell you what I did, because I think this is the part the people in the comments always wish the protagonist would do. I made a list. I sat down with a yellow legal pad at my kitchen counter in Brooklyn, and I made a list of every single person who had called, texted, emailed, or DM'd me to advocate for my sister taking my house. 11 names. I wrote them down. And then I wrote next to each name the answer to one question. When was the last time this person called me to ask how I was doing? For 9 of the 11, the answer was never. For the other 2, the answer was more than 3 years ago. I put the list in a drawer. I did not respond to any of them. I have not spoken to 9 of those 11 people since. 2 have apologized. Those 2 I have allowed back, slowly, on my terms. I also did the practical things. I called the lawyer who handled my closing, and I had her draft a letter, on her firm's letterhead, stating in plain language that the property was titled solely in my name, that I had no intention of transferring it, and that any attempt to interfere with my ownership would be met with appropriate legal response. I sent that letter, by certified mail, to my parents and to my sister. I changed all the locks at the Rhinebeck house, though no one in my family had ever been given a key. I installed 2 security cameras, one at the front door and one at the gravel drive, and I added motion-activated lights along the side of the garage. I am not being paranoid. I am being a woman who has read enough stories to know what people will do when they have decided they are entitled to something. A month after the certified letter, Brooke showed up at the house. I was there for the weekend. It was a Saturday in late June. Hot. I had been weeding the flower bed by the front porch, and I came around the side of the house with a bucket of clippings. And there she was, standing by my front door, looking up at the windows. She had taken the train from Penn Station to Rhinecliff and then, I later learned, had taken a lift, because she does not drive, because she has never bothered to get a license. She was wearing a long linen dress and a sun hat that I'm sure cost more than my weekly groceries. "Hannah," she said, like she was surprised to see me, in my own driveway, at my own house. "Brooke, why are you here? I just wanted to see it. Mom described it and I had to see it. Hannah, it's so beautiful. Oh my God. The porch, the trees. You did this." "I did do this. Can I come in? I won't stay. I just want to see." I looked at her for a long moment. My little sister. The girl I had loved fiercely when she was small and had carried on my hip, and had read to and had defended on a playground in 2003 from a boy named Trevor who pulled her hair. I want to tell you I felt nothing in that moment, but I felt a lot of things. I felt loss. I felt a kind of grief, actually. For the sister I had thought I had, or for the sister we might have been to each other in a different family. "No," I said. "Hannah." "No, Brooke. You cannot come in. This is my home. You are not welcome here. I would like you to leave." She started to cry. Real tears. I have to give her that. She has always been a good crier. "Hannah, I just want to be your sister. Mom said you've been so cold, and I just wanted to come and see and tell you that I love you and that none of this matters." "The house doesn't matter." "Then why are you here, Brooke?" "If the house doesn't matter." She did not have an answer. She stood in my driveway and she looked at her shoes. "You need to leave," I said. "There's a coffee shop in town. They can call you a lift. I am going inside now, and I am locking the door, and I am asking you to be off this property in 10 minutes. If you are still here in 11, I am calling the police." "You wouldn't." "I would." "Test me, Brooke." She left. She called my mother on the way to the train, and my mother called me before Brooke had even reached the station, screaming so loud, I held the phone 6 inches from my ear. I let her scream. When she paused for breath, I said, Mom, I am hanging up now. Please do not call me again until you can speak to me with respect. I love you. Goodbye. And I hung up, and I turned the phone off, and I poured myself a glass of cold water, and I sat on my porch for a long time and watched the wind move through the maples. She did not call for 6 weeks. When she finally did, she did not apologize. She just asked if Daniel and I would be coming for the 4th of July. I told her we had plans. We did have plans. Daniel and I had invited Tessa and her husband up to the Rhinebeck house, and we grilled, and we set off sparklers in the field behind the garage, and Tessa got a little drunk and told me I was the most badass woman she had ever met. And we slept with all the windows open, and I woke up the next morning to the sound of birds and the smell of wet grass. And I lay in bed for a long time thinking about how strange and unfair and lucky it is to make your own family out of people who choose you. Daniel and I got married the following spring. Small ceremony at the house on the lawn, under a tent we rented from a place in Kingston. My parents came. They were polite. My mother cried during the vows in a way that seemed real, and afterward, when the dancing started, my father pulled me aside on the porch and said, "Your mother and I are very proud of you, Henna Bear. We have not always shown that. I want you to know I see it now. I want to tell you I forgave him on the spot." I did not. I said, "Thank you, Dad. I appreciate that," and I went back to my husband and my friends. And I let the words sit out there in the air between us for a while, and we have been slowly building something since then. Slowly. On my terms. Brooke, I see twice a year. Briefly. In public places. She has stopped asking about the house. She is selling real estate now, ironically, in Queens, and from what I understand, she is okay. She has her own apartment. She pays her own apartment. She pays her own rent. The house is the same. The hydrangeas come in every June. The wood stove still smokes a little, if you don't open the flue all the way. Last fall, I planted 3 apple trees along the back fence, because I have decided I want to be the kind of woman who has apple trees, the kind who is patient enough to wait the 7 years it will take before they fruit. People ask me sometimes, when I tell pieces of this story, whether I have regrets, whether I wish I had handled it differently, whether I miss my family. The answer is complicated, but I think the closest I can get is this. I do not miss the family I had. I miss the family I thought I had. There is a difference, and learning to feel that difference without letting it destroy you is, I think, the actual work of growing up. If you have a sister who has been told her whole life that she is the one who matters, and if you have parents who have spent 30 years quietly informing you that you are the strong one, the dependable one, the one who can take it, I want you to hear this from me. You are allowed to stop taking it. You are allowed to spend your money on yourself. You are allowed to buy the house, post the photo, say the word no, and mean it. The people who love you will adjust. The people who do not will reveal themselves, and that revelation, painful as it is a gift. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to draw a line with your family that they did not want you to draw? What did it cost you, and what did you gain? I read every one. I am still learning. Looking back now, 3 years after that first phone call from my mother on the morning of my engagement party, I understand something I did not understand then. Every choice my parents made was a seed, and the harvest came whether they wanted it or not. They spent 31 years teaching Brooke that the world owed her, and the world, eventually, sent her a bill she could not pay. They spent 31 years teaching me that I was the strong one, and one morning I woke up and realized strength, used correctly, is not a burden. It is a door. I do not believe in fate. I believe in arithmetic. You add up the days, the small slights, the missed birthdays, the dinners you cooked alone in your apartment, because no one was coming, and at some point the sum becomes a number you cannot pretend not to see. That morning at 6, watching the sun come up over Brooklyn, I finally saw the number. Buying the farmhouse was not revenge. It was the only sensible thing left to do with a life that had been quietly handing me the message for years. Spend the money on yourself. No one else is going to. What I want to say to you, if you are listening to this in your car, or in your kitchen, or in the middle of a long shift somewhere, is that integrity is not loud. It does not require a fight. The day I told my mother no, I did not raise my voice. I did not slam a door. I just said the word and meant it, and I kept meaning it the next day, and the next week, and the next year. That is the work. The first no is easy, because you are angry. The 100th no is the one that builds you a life. I think a lot about what I would tell the version of me who sat on that kitchen stool with a cold coffee in her hands. I would tell her this. The mind that saves quietly for 9 years is the same mind that knows in some deep place that a door is coming. Trust that mind. The heart that aches at a half-empty table is teaching you something about who deserves a seat at the next one. Trust that heart. And the spine that finally straightens when someone tries to take what you built. That spine is not new. It has been there the whole time, waiting for you to need it. Brooke is selling real estate now. She has her own apartment in Queens. And from what little I know, she is doing better than she was. Some part of me believes that the day I said no, I gave her a gift too, even though neither of us would have called it that at the time. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for a person is refuse to keep paying their rent on a life that is not yours to fund. The apple trees will fruit in 4 more years. I plan to be there to taste them.